All right, folks, welcome back to PrepperNow. Today we're going to be talking about this meeting between Trump and Putin to give you some analysis and things in the background about what this is all about, what it holds, the implications, whether it will go or not, and also just some general things on the entire SMO that's going on in the hope that they will eventually and fully get to a ceasefire. But the problem is that Ukraine and Europe are not exactly on board. Welcome to PrepperNow.
Please, Lord, help me get one more.
PrepperNow is now being sponsored by Augusta Precious Metals. They're a member of the Better Business Bureau, and you can check them out online at AugustaPreciousMetals.com, and a great place to consider putting your retirement if you want to put it into a gold or silver IRA. All right, friends, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you. Hit the buttons and stuff. And this Trump-Putin meeting is extremely important. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the Ukraine war has started, the Russian-Ukraine war started in February 24th of 2022. Now, I've been covering this thing for the whole way. And if you're not familiar with Substack or the Crisis Report, go check those out. Links are in the description. I have been detailing things the whole way. I actually even made a video. It's on Odyssey somewhere because everything else has been taken down. Odyssey, it basically, on January 25th of 2022, I said there's going to be a war. It's going to happen. And sure enough, if you remember back then, Putin had basically laid everything he needed to go and to attack Ukraine at the border. And you don't just leave stuff there unless you're going to attack. Brings in people, they attack. February 24th comes, and we are here. April of 2022, there was a really good chance that they could have stopped things at that point. And I'm not going to get into the analysis of who did what, who said what, or why it didn't happen. But it didn't happen. And you can go find this all out. They basically had everything right at that point where, honestly, for Ukraine, it would have been better. But they didn't do it. So, 2.5 plus years, 3 years, plus of war and fighting and destruction and death and everything has led to this point to where we are right here. And Trump, his big political campaign promise, besides, other things, but this is one of the biggest one, was that he was going to end the war. And so he has, some feathers in his cap for other things that have gone on around the world, like Cambodia and Thailand, India and Pakistan, say what you will. He had a hand in it, even if it was just a minimal one, and the countries decided amongst themselves. He was putting force and pressure to try to get it stopped. Well, now he's trying to do this to Ukraine and Russia.
In the office with President Trump on Air Force One, heading in. What's your initial feeling? How are you feeling about what you're going to get out of this?
I think we're going to do very well. Our country is doing very well. We're setting records economically like we never have before, including the stock markets are all at a record high. We're taking in trillions and trillions of dollars with tariffs. We're going for a meeting with President Putin in Alaska, and I think it's going to work out very well. And if it doesn't, I'm going to head back home real fast.
I mean, if it doesn't, you walk.
I would walk there.
Say what you will, it's a good thing that we are at this point. And the reason why is because we need to get this thing resolved. Trump needs to get this resolved, and the reason why is because he needs to get his domestic policy, his foreign policy, and all these other things that he really wants to get moving and grooving as it pertains to the economy, as it pertains to, the domestic stuff, everything. He's got a laundry list, a long list of things that he wants to get done. And, say what you will, he's been successful in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things I'm not really into. The Middle East stuff is definitely one of them, but if he can get this thing secured in Europe, it will really be good, and then he can focus elsewhere. And honestly, folks, if you look at what's going on, the Asia Pacific is where the real problems need to be focused on. And so as long as we have this stuff going on in the Middle East and the stuff going on in Eastern Europe, it deters. And as a country, we're not able to focus. So some of the issues with all this is that Zelensky and Europe are trying to make it so Russia comes to the table as if they're losing this war. And full disclosure, and even Western outlets are starting to report it, Russia is not losing the war. They have chewed up more ground in the last couple months than they have in the last couple years. Let me give you an example. They went in and took 110 kilometers just a few days ago, or 42 square miles of land in some really key places in Dnepropetrovsk and Pokrovsk. And one of them is called Dobroprilia, okay? And these are all really, just linchpins. When you're trying to do war, you're trying to, it's not rocket science. You basically want to encircle and then overcome. And so these are called pincer moves. And so they go in and they chew up land and they get going. And then another group up the road a little bit goes in and gets into the land and starts to do their maneuvers. And then they circle around to each other and they pinch. Okay, it's called a pincer move. It's been going on in military tactics for hundreds of years. Well, what Russia did, they kind of psyched them out and faked them out. So they went in and they were going one way and they thought they were going to circle around to the left. But what they did was they kept going straight forward, and then this other group of them started to circle around from way up to the north or east, but they faked them out. The Ukrainian intelligence had everything saying to them that they were going to go and start to head towards the other, piece of the pincer movement to the south, but they kept going, and then they circled around, and they kind of took this other large area. And so by doing that, they basically took more land and they got more control. And I mean, we're to the point now with Ukraine where they're saying that if you're 60 plus and you want to fight, you can do this. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the history of countries that go in and say, hey, if you're 60, 70 years old and you want to fight, generally when that happens, that means you're not really tapping in to the resources of the people, or there's not that many people left. This is something that Germany did in the 1940s, and it's a pretty big hallmark of a sign saying that if you're going into this demographic age, you're basically at the end of your rope. So, of course, Ukraine has been getting all kinds of weapons and, things from all of these European countries and America when Joe was in, and Trump has kind of extended it in a vicarious way. He basically put it so Europe would buy our weapons and then give them to Ukraine. So honestly, we're just selling the weapons to Europe, and then they give them to Ukraine. So we're at least getting some stuff back. Now, there's a lot of other things that are going on. There's been other promises. But we're at the point now where Trump has basically gone along to get along, and he tried to, make it so he was catering to Putin, and Putin really didn't warm up to that, and he kept going and hammering Ukraine. And, then Trump kind of took on a stronger point, and then they were talking about more sanctions and other stuff. And Trump started to go back towards the side of Ukraine, and that really wasn't going too well. And so this is kind of the next stint of getting Russia to stop or at least ceasefire. And that's important for Ukraine because I think they're out of gas. The problem is that the leaders of Europe really believe that this thing will keep going and then eventually Putin will start to take more European land. Now, if you look at history and you look at what our tiny mustachioed friend in Germany 1930s and 40s did, yes, he did that. The appeasement did not work. However, from what I have read, this country and the bear country and Vlad, it's 11, 12, 13 time zones or something like that. I don't think they're looking for more territory or even more influence. I do believe that they just want to have a bit of a buffer zone between Europe and NATO and themselves. And if the collapse of the Soviet Union and the push eastward of NATO and all that, they would promise, hey, this is the last country we're going to do, and come on over. And at this time in the early 2000s, Russia was not as strong. They played ball a little bit more. Yeltsin, came and went, and then Putin took over essentially with a little stint with Medvedev. But now they've worked themselves into a place where they're just a lot more powerful. They have more clout. So now we have to kind of make it so things settle down. And this Alaska summit is probably the best and very well possibly the last chance we're going to have to make it so this thing works. And the countries come together and do a ceasefire. Ukraine is trying to act like they have the upper hand, and Europe is bolstering them from the background and saying, we don't want to cede territory. We want you to stop and draw the lines where they are. But Russia doesn't have to do that. Even Hillary Clinton came in and said, you know what, if Russia will leave things as they are and Ukraine does not cede territory, I will nominate Donald Trump for a peace prize. So I think everybody knows just how close things are. The problem is, are we going to get it over the hump? I hope so. Trump has been his usual self. He's had some shows of forces. They've been flying B-2 Spirits and other things. There's been a nice welcome for Mr. Putin and all that. But at the same time, they're flexing some muscles and saying, hey, let's go from a war footing to a post-ceasefire footing, and let's start to put the geopolitical landscape back into a place of relative peace. And this is a big thing for Trump because he really wants to focus on what is going on in Asia. If you've read his foreign policy, he really thinks that the big problems and everything are out there with China. And that's where he wants our military being trained for. He doesn't want us having proxy wars, from what he said, all right? And he's really trying to make it so, from what he said, that our focus is Asia and our focus is China. And we settle down these wars, we get our economy back in shape, which, by the way, he's had good wage growth in blue-collar jobs. It's 0.1% lower than his first term, but his first term was one of the highest ever. So for modern presidencies, wage growth for the blue-collar folks, honestly, has been in a very positive way. I got to be honest with you, folks. He's got some things to be presidency. And I think we're all kind of hoping for that. We need it. We really do. So, and I know I'm going to get people here who'll say, oh, he's the AC and he's this and that. I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, I think he's just a human being on Earth with a big ego, but a lot of power and a lot of political capital behind him, who's trying to do things to make it so his legacy is one that is positive and remembered through time, that he was the right man for the right job at the right time. And I hope that's right. And I could very well be wrong. And I'm sure there's people who have already clicked off because it pisses them off. I've never seen a person more able to just really kind of anger people just by a presence than Trump. But it is what it is. And there's a lot of things he does I don't like. I said it the other day. I just wish he wouldn't speak sometimes. But if he can get this ceasefire going, this is going to be a good thing for everybody in the world. And so I hope it happens. And I hope he's successful for everyone. So, all right, friends, if you like what we're doing here, please hit the links in the description. God bless. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a patron here at PrepperNow. And we'll just see you on the next one. Hit the links in the description. Possibly consider becoming a member if you like what we're doing here. And I really appreciate you. I do. So check out Minds, Gab, Twitter, X, Truth Social, subscribe, Star and Locals. Been posting stuff there. And we will see you on the next one.